focus on people power. It is seen in the delivery during the 18 years of new schools built, new hospitals built, new community centers built. So far, well, everybody at home knows the last time a school was built, the
Thank
PNP
you very
was
much,
in power.
Mr. Price. Let's have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
I think the issue of the PNP being a better steward of the economy is a laughing one. The PNP managed the economy at a time when the world was seeing growth. What kind of growth did we see in Jamaica? They have shown no credibility in dealing with the economy. And now that we're in global recession, I'm telling Jamaicans that they cannot be trusted to manage the economy.
We will have the next question now. It's Nadine McLeod, and it goes to Team JLP.
Thank you. The head of the Pharmaceutical Society of Jamaica was recently sent home pending an investigation. She was sent home for reiterating the association's cry for government to desist from using pharmacy technicians to dispense drugs at public health facilities. Was it a wrong decision, and should it be revoked?
Now, I have to be very careful with that question, in the sense that you're asking me something about a public civil servant, an issue that is currently being explored and investigated by the necessary agencies. So at this point in time, I think it would be unprofessional and irresponsible of me to actually comment in this manner on something that could impact somebody on such a personal level. And so I will defer the question at this point in time.
A rebuttal from Team PNP.
While they might want to defer the question, I think it speaks to a pattern. There is a member of that panel who recently cancelled a youth conference. It shows a habit of the overreach of the executive and leaving processes that are best dealt with professional bodies such as the Public Services Commission to adjudicate on issues of national development to the whims and fancies or the pendulum swings or mercuric personalities of those in the political classes of the Jamaica Labour Party.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Next question now from Ingrid Brown, and it goes to Team PNP.
Jamaica is poorly ranked on Transparency International's corruption index. How would a government formed by your party seriously and genuinely tackle corruption?
Well, that's perhaps the question I'm happiest for this evening. The fall in the ranking of Transparency International, along with the competitiveness index and the foreign direct investments, are actually all we believe on this side, an indication, a manifestation of a global community that has lost trust and confidence in the management of the Jamaican economy and the Jamaican society by the Jamaica Labour Party. The issue of restoring transparency goes to the core of the People's National Party's policies, as was evident with the establishment of greater powers for the Office of the Contractor General, the Access to Information Act, and the opening up of the committees of Parliament to public scrutiny. Look at the result of that opening up when civil society held their feet firmly on the JLP administration to let them proceed with an extradition which they had frustrated for several months.
A rebuttal now from Team JLP.
I believe that Jamaicans must take care in filtering this issue of transparency through PNP lenses. They have really shown no credibility on it. Under the Jamaica Labour Party government, a manifesto promise was made in the 2007 election. Promise made, promise kept. All sessional committees of Parliament are chaired by opposition, and that has opened up all of the inner happenings for others to see. A decrease in the ranking does not necessarily follow that a country has fallen. Other countries may have improved in their standings.
Next question goes to Garfield Burford, and it goes to Team JLP.
As younger members of your party, how differently, if at all, would you have dealt with the Jamaica Development Infrastructure Program, JDIP, especially in the area of whether or not it should have been included in the budget from the first place?
Well, the JDIP project is clearly something that went wrong. There has been issues that went wrong there, and the Prime Minister has recognized such, and that is why he has taken the decisions that he has taken personal responsibility of the portfolio. We have seen that there has been consequences to the actions of some of the persons responsible for the JDIP project. Yes, I agree that maybe it should have been, well, actually not maybe, it should have been followed through and pursued with the right budgetary pathways, so to speak. And it is a matter where it is currently under review. We are awaiting what the outcomes will be. And I think what the Prime Minister has indicated is that he will make full transparency of the outcomes of the project.
A rebuttal from Team PNP.
I sit on the Public Accounts Committee, and it's interesting that Dr. Longmore actually has that to say. I want to address something that Marlene said before, however. The global recession was in 2008. Since then, 74% of the world's economies have moved on, and they're not complaining about it. We somehow have got stuck. These are instances, particularly the Jamaica Development Infrastructure Program, why it is that we say they cannot manage. If you borrow money at the extent that you're borrowing it and you're spending it as if it is your own, then somehow something is wrong. And even more egregious is the fact that the Prime Minister was a part of the cabinet when the JDIP was being discussed. So he cannot obfuscate himself from blame at this time.
Next question is Nadine McLeod, and it goes to Team PNP.
The current reduction in crime has been criticized as being short-term and as stemming from the Christopher Douglas Cook extradition. I'd like you to share with us the critical aspects of a plan for real and sustainable reduction in crime should your party form the next government.
I'll take that one. The reduction in crime would be short-lived if the elements of the functional cooperation with our stakeholders, such as the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, were ever to see a reversal. I believe that some of the rhetoric that has come from the platforms of the Jamaica Labour Party is cause for all of us as Jamaicans who love peace in our society to be very careful in assessing their utterances. The issue as well of keeping it sustainably low speaks to opportunities for enterprise and employment for young people so that less of our playing fields, for example, will become killing fields, so that the idle hands that criminals and those who will corrupt our young people have access to will be engaged in productive activity, which is part of the centerpiece of the manifesto of the People's National Party and will be how we proceed in the next administration.
Thank you, Mr. Price. A rebuttal from Team JLP.
My fellow Jamaicans, the issue of crime is a very complex one, extremely complex, and we are all suffering from it. And we have to be careful that we do not give it that color of PNP or JLP. The reduction that we are experiencing is real, and it has happened under a JLP administration. There are a number of measures that need to be put in place and sustained, but a number of measures have already been put in place, and all Jamaicans must be a part of fighting this problem in order to make the fight sustainable.
Thank you, Mrs. Malahou-Fort. Let's get the next question from Ingrid Brown, and it goes to Team JLP.
Business operators have complained that bureaucracy is stifling business expansion. How do you propose that this can be addressed?
Well, business operators would be quite happy to learn that the government has just simplified the tax reform, the payment of taxes to enable one single document, the SO2, to enable them to file all their statutory declarations using this one form. Other initiatives are being undertaken by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce to enable simpler business registration. And further to this, we must celebrate the fact that 85% of all approvals for building are today delivered under the 90-day limit.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. A rebuttal from Team PNP.
The truth is that businesses in Jamaica today are having it very, very difficult, and a very difficult time moving forward. There's no demand in the sector. There's no productivity in the sector. Electricity costs are high. Businesses are closing. And so what we would do as a People's National Party government is truly diversify our energy base to make sure that businesses can pay electricity bills functionally, properly, and on time. We'd also put in place mechanisms to ensure that they have access to capital. And what we would also do is ensure that our young people have access to capital so that they can start meaningful businesses for economic growth, because let us face it, we will not be able to pay back the IMF or the JDIP money if we have no growth in this economy.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
On the issue of governance, as younger members of your party, how differently, if at all, would you have dealt with the Trafigura matter, especially as it relates to whether or not you would have also gone to court to try to prevent it from being heard in open court?
All right, I'll say two things on that, without relying on the line used by Safile, to say that because it is currently something under review, I won't speak to it directly. With respect to Trafigura, the People's National Party's understanding of that was it as a political contribution made by a foreign firm. No Jamaican laws were broken in accepting that contribution. However, issues have arisen and they persist today. The course of action before the Jamaican courts must be respected. All Jamaicans are protected under the Constitution. The persons from the People's National Party who are currently appearing before the courts are insisting that their rights be upheld under the Jamaican Constitution. With respect to political contributions, however, our view and the view of the People's National Party going forward is to accept the proposal put forward by civil society and the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. And we wish that the Jamaica Labour Party parliamentarians would agree with that.
From Team JLP.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we mustn't pay lip service to the fight on corruption. A critical part of fighting corruption is transparency. And here is an issue that many Jamaicans still have questions about. Here is an issue that the overseas companies have questions about. I can't see what is there to hide. If transparency is so critical, let us open the case to the public. Let us open it as all the other issues have been opened to the public. We mustn't pay lip service to the fight against corruption.
The next question goes as well to Team JLP. It's from Nadine McLeod.
Now, many university students cannot afford to pay tuition fees upfront. What programs can your party in power implement to help more young people access tertiary education while reducing the burden on the state?
Well, it is very, I am quite happy with that question because today, one of our success stories as an administration is the reforms that have been administered to the Student Loan Bureau. We have expanded the pool of funds available for on lending. We have reduced the interest rates, and we have changed how the interest rates are computed from compounded interest to the reducing balance. We have also extended the time available for repayment and also the grace period before which one has to start to repay. In that context, we are creating an enabling environment for more Jamaicans, young Jamaicans, to access tertiary education.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. A rebuttal now from Team PNP.
And as we rebut that one, Marlene can't escape. If she believes so much in transparency, who paid for Mannert, Phelps and Phillips? And as a former resident magistrate, to so callously disregard the rules of the court and our Constitution is shameless, graceless, and vulgar. Dayton?
In relation to tertiary education, what we want to do is that we want to have a public-private partnership in providing employment for students at the tertiary level. We also want to look at the students' loan and want to look at the repayment. How do we calculate the repayment period for these individuals? And we want to tie that to their employment post-university. So we want to look at what job it is that they have secured and then work out a payment system in relation to that job that they have secured.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Nadine McLeod has indicated that she will use one of her follow-up questions now.
Aside from the reform to the Student Loan Bureau, should your party be returned to power, what other programs can and will you put in place to help these students?
Well, we have been expanding the concept of workforce colleges through the Heart Trust NTA to lift the skill levels that are available for vocational training for all young Jamaicans. This will enable us to attract the sort of investment that is specialized to the areas that we are training our young people in. It is supported by labor market data, and we are of the view that by 2020, we're going to be raising the number of Jamaicans that are certified at this level to 50%.
A rebuttal from Team PNP.
Yes, the truth is that I'm not quite sure what Warren is actually speaking about. And it's very interesting to actually hear him give that kind of data. If the People's National Party is returned to government, we will do exactly what Dayton has said in terms of finding meaningful ways for students to repay their student loan and work out teacher, private sector, joint venture relationships where private sector matches the funds that we put up.
Ingrid Brown has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
Some young Jamaicans in particular have become quite disenchanted with the politics of old. Do you agree with those who call for the retirement of the stalwarts to make way for fresh faces with new ideas? Why or why not?
It is more than about retirement for fresh faces, because you can have, as displayed here, young people who are so cemented in the old approach that their dates of birth make them too redundant and in need of retirement. Our commitment is, having been away from the front line for the last 4 years, we have assessed global developments so that we are able, as we have displayed with the progressive agenda and will confirm with the manifesto, designed a set of policies and programs where the experience and wisdom of stalwarts in the PNP, matched by the energy, experience, and new approaches of Lisa, Dayton, myself, and so many of our other young candidates, to bring about a new approach to match the emerging and existing challenges which face our society.
A rebuttal now from Team JLP.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow Jamaicans, what Raymond has done demonstrates the old politics of nasty attacks and getting personal, and it is so wrong. I know many of you, like me, are just tired of that old politics. But there are 3 stages of people's life: the ascent, the apex, and the decline. And giving up power is very important, as taking power. And people must leave gracefully and hand over to the next generation. There are new mountains to climb. Leave gracefully and you lead happier lives. This is the time for a next generation in leadership.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallow Ford. Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team JLP.
Many Jamaicans expect newer, fresher, and more progressive thinking from younger Jamaicans. As younger members of your party, what is the most radical strategy that you would employ to implement to deal with unattached youth?
Well, unattached youth, as you would have recognized, is covered under our CAP program that today is training 12,300 young persons enrolled in 78 institutions. And in addition to that, some 4,500 are being trained through the National Youth Service. And of course, the Heart Trust NTA trained just last year 85,000. So we are making a very serious attempt at dealing with the issue of unattached youth. But beyond that, we are looking at what has caused youth to be unattached and placing in the educational system the relevant checks and balances to ensure that before they leave at 6th form, they are adequately prepared to meet the demands of the labor market.
And as part of that, we will look at those who are young offenders, those with mental health problems, alcohol problems.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallow Ford. I believe the time for that is up. Let's have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
The truth is that unattached youth is a serious problem, and the majority of our crimes are committed by young people who are under 30 years old. The PNP has a vision, because the truth is you cannot train young people if you have no job to put them in. And the fact of the matter is we have not been able to compete in this global economy. The PNP intends to pick the winners that we will compete in: agribusiness, tourism, creative industries, and train our youth as a pool to feed into these industries. So it's a bigger plan, it's a bigger pot, and we want to say to our young people that we will be creating those jobs in the short term and the medium term. We've done it before, and the JLP has squandered that away by losing over 90,000 jobs since they have taken office.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Nadeem McLeod has the next question, and it goes to Team PNP.
Yes, you said in your opening statement that you bring a team that has youth, fresh thinking, and experience. Now, some may say that it sounds all too familiar. Along with that, young people represent a large percentage of uncommitted voters. What else can we expect from you, and how will your government seek to win these uncommitted voters?
All right, the issue of uncommitted voters is part of the response that not only in her opening statement, but the last response that Lisa alluded to. There is an expectation and delivery deficit. There has been for some time. We mean to correct that. Correcting that is more than describing statistics, Warren. It is about putting tangible manifestations, not just manifestos, Marlene. One example of the money misused in the JDIP program, for example, if that were to have been applied to some of the programs such as the Agency for Inner City Renewal by Henley Morgan and other civil society and community-based led organizations, they could have plug-in points for young people who we continuously describe as unattached, who actually are just seeking the proper programs to attach themselves to.
Thank you, Mr. Price. We'll now have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
Ladies and gentlemen, fresh thinking is about rejecting old-style politics, which has harmed us more than it has helped us. And we have a young Prime Minister, Honorable Andrew Holness, who is demonstrating what it takes to lead a country as a new generation of fresh thinker. And I just cite one example of pulling people in and holding them accountable. The issue of JDIP has been raised. There are a number of issues that we have, a number of problems we face as a nation, but we're not going to solve them if we are not able to break away from that old-time thinking and just attacking each other, as Mr. Price, you're doing. It's just plain wrong, plain wrong. That's not fresh thinking.
What are the solutions?
Let us show how leadership can mobilize people around a common cause.
We will now take a short break. We invite you to stay tuned.
The smiles on their faces mean more than just happiness. Since 2002, the JPS Early Childhood Nutrition Program has been supporting thousands of children across the island. The program now feeds 30,000 basic school students every day. With good nourishment, they're eager and able to learn. The JPS has links to communities that go well beyond wires and poles. Here, with a little help from JPS, early childhood students are getting a chance to shine.
Now this one is called All About the Music.
Fulfilling hopes, creating dreams, and making a difference are at the heart of the Daniel Geddes Foundation. Through our Diageo Learning for Life skills training programs, over 1,800 Jamaicans now have a real chance of contributing to Jamaica's economic growth.
Upon being accepted, we learn a lot of things. Before, I thought I was just going to come and mix up some drinks and flip some bottles and stuff. But before we got to that, the meat of the matter, I learned personal development, working with colleagues and customers, communicating on the telephone instead of saying, hello, who is this?
Certified as bartenders, drapery makers, plumbers, tilers, waiters, housekeepers, customer service agents, and landscapers. Diageo Learning for Life graduates are empowered, competent, and able to give back to their families, communities, and Jamaica. The Daniel Geddes Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
It's all about the music.
Go out and vote for who we want to vote for and respect each other.
Can't go every day a kill off one another, so we need love.
Violence just mash up Jamaica.
Even the devil vex over it, brother.
We are all one Jamaican.
We want peace and we want to know to reason one another.
Well, let's keep things violence free.
So please, peace all the way.
Crime-free election, and that me I ask for. Share a direct, unified love with each other.
One nation united under God. Jamaica need love. No gun, just love.
Respect.
Respect.
Respect. Respect.
Respect.
Rasp.
The National Political Debates, brought to you by Jamaica Debates Commission, in association with Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, changing lives with their energy, and the DNG Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
Welcome back to the first in a series of 3 political debates being facilitated by the Jamaica Debates Commission. If you're just joining us, welcome as well. We will invite Nadine McLeod of the RGR Group to start this segment with a follow-up question.
Thank you. I'd asked Team JLP earlier a question about the PSJ, the head of the PSJ who was sent home. You had said that you cannot answer the question, understandably, but can you address the issue of perceived victimization of members of the public sector who speak out on issues?
I believe that victimization is wrong. It's wrong. There is a process that should be undertaken if there is a problem. And I know that this is a perception that people are being victimized. I think it's wrong if it actually exists. But let us not jump the gun. Let us allow each case to be investigated and let us see what happens, because people's lives are affected in a personal way. And you know, it's we who let each other down on a one-to-one basis. We are the ones, we the Jamaican people, who disregard process. We shouldn't do it. So I think if there is a proper case of victimization, there should be recourse. But let us not prejudge an issue.
And may I emphasize that the reason that I chose not to respond to that question was because there was
a
civil servant involved in the issue. It was a personal
rebuttal
matter.
no from Team PNP.
I must say, I know Mrs. Germain personally, and this victimization started when we made a joint presentation to a parliamentary committee. Now, the truth is that you have 156 positions for pharmacists and you only have 45. And what they have done is to use pharmacy techs to dispense meds in the other pharmacies. Now, that is just wrong. The woman is defending something that is there by law. Now, if they can't show some just reason for it to happen.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Ingrid Bowen now has the next question, and it goes to Team JLP.
Why should Jamaica continue to have a shortage of some professions when there are brilliant Jamaicans who just need the financial support to be trained in these areas? What would be the solution under a government formed by your party?
Well, the Prime Minister, as Minister of Education, indicated that there has to be a new regime in the financing of tertiary education. It requires the development of an education trust to allow parents to save towards the tertiary education of their children. It requires participation from the public sector, and it requires participation from the private sector. This is working at the University of the West Indies today, that is raising its endowment fund. And to complement that, we have demonstrated our commitment by making it easier at the Student Loan Bureau for students to access financing. Outside of that, we must emphasize that there is a personal responsibility that must be communicated to parents, that they too have a stake in the education of their children.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We'll have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
You know, Raymond Dayton and myself are standing here because of the policies and programs of the People's National Party. Dayton himself grew up in Bamboo St. Anne and was able to access university education. Raymond and myself were able to access university education as well. All Jamaicans want to be able to see their children access higher education and learning, and certainly live a better quality of life. We in the PNP plan to reallocate resources. That's the first thing. But the second thing is to structure a better deal with the Student Loan Bureau so that students can pay back their loans that is tied to their employment at an interest rate that they can afford.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ingrid Bowen has indicated that she would like to use her first follow-up question.
For those unable to meet the criteria of the Student Loan Bureau, would you support bonding of such persons, the government financing their training, and then they are bonded to public sector?
This is an approach that has been done before, certainly with persons in the medical profession who are enabled to complete their training and then are bonded for a period of time, and also in the educational profession. But I must indicate that this message about tying repayment to persons' employment, we have already taken decisions that for medical doctors, for other professions who have to repay greater sums, we are going to be realigning their loan repayments to reflect those realities. So that has been done already. And then beyond that, the issue of bonding is something that is being done and can be enhanced over in the next term.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We'll now have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
I somehow don't think that my opponents have a real grasp of what is going on in the country. Because when I hear the number of students being deregistered, when I hear the number of students who are at home who don't have a job, whose students' loan is writing every month, I'm wondering if we're talking about the same thing. Now, what we are bringing to the table is that we're saying that as long as a student, and this is the concept that the People's National Party is built on, of equality, as long as they have what it takes, they should be able to get that education, especially members of our disabled community.
Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
Standard & Poor's, in their outlook on Jamaica and lowering the outlook to negative, they cited the possibility for early elections and a change in administration. Are you concerned that Standard & Poor's is concerned about a change in administration?
Standard & Poor's concern is rightly placed at the fact that the current administration have so mismanaged the situation, missing IMF tests. In fact, we don't know whether or not they are taken, but we certainly know they have not been passed. And their warning, really, was for a fixity of purpose, as stated in the letter of intent with the IMF, which has been frustrated by, one, the long protracted denial of the global recession, the failure to properly diagnose, and then the lateness to response, which has become typical of whether it's Bruce Golding or Andrew Holness. That's one thing that has certainly been reflected in the continuity approach Mr. Holness speaks about. Standard & Poor's wants a change in administration in terms of the management of the economy. We are not concerned that they were saying not an administration of the People's National Party. They really were saying what is happening cannot continue to happen. Our private sector appreciates that. Consumers
Thank you, Mr.
at home
Price.
appreciate
We will now have
that.
a rebuttal from Team JLP.
You are